didn't know that I was showing them that. So
Right.
my daughter was probably like a bit less than a year. And we went out with friends, and after a night of drinking, we were coming home, and I told him, I said, I started crying, and I said, can you pull over? I need to tell you something. And I'm crying and bawling, and he's like, what's going on? Why are you crying? And all I said was, do you remember our fear? It's here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, that's crazy.
For me to like even just say those words to him, I was like, shit, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I decided that if I'm not happy, I started to see like I'm not showing them a loving relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to choose me, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
so I could be happy. So then I can give them my happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was hard to overcome the whole guilt of choosing me, but not choosing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you asked him to end the relationship. Like, how did you basically transition from being together, so you tell him that, and then how do you move into the next stage?
Well, it wasn't easy transition at all because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I'm in the mortgage business. I'm a loan officer. So we were now in 2007, 2008. That's when the market was horrible.
Yeah.
There was no jobs. At first, we were both in shock. I was in shock that I even spoke the words.
Yeah.
And he was in shock that he was receiving the news that he always thought he was going to receive.
Yeah.
So at first, he was very loving and very supportive. Like, look, like, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I think maybe you should go have sex with a woman.
Oh.
And just confirm that that's what you want.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm married. I don't want to betray you like that. I don't want to do that to you because I know that I'm going to like it. And I know that that's what I want. He didn't leave for 2 more years, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. He didn't. So he went from like supportive to angry to so I had to deal with all that. And finally, a couple years later, he decided to leave.
Oh, okay.
And now we were like, okay, holy shit. Like, I just made the decision to be single.
Mm.
So that was another stage of me like, shit, what did you just do?
So, like, did his real fear come true? Did you end up leaving to be with another woman? Or how did that... Or was it just like, okay, we broke up, I ended up he moved out. What was that?
So it took him about 2 years to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I met somebody. By then I was sleeping in the living room because he was like going to punish me for choosing me. So he kept the bedroom. My son had his room. My son and daughter had their room. Mm-hmm. And I slept in the living room. Then I met someone. I kept it from her, of course. I was like, I didn't tell her I was still living with my husband. After a couple of dates of me not inviting her to my house, she was like, why can't I go to your house? And I'm like, well, because I have little ones. Like, I'm not going to just bring a random to my house. And we had gotten in a big argument, me and my kid's father. And I called her and I said, hey, can I come over? And so I was like, I'm not being honest with you. I'm actually still living with my kid's father. We're married, but, I'm not with him. After, talking to her, and she's like, you're not being completely honest with him either. I think you need to be honest with him and let him know what's happening. And I'm pretty sure he'll leave. Yeah, I let him know, hey, I'm seeing somebody. And within a couple weeks, he left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that basically led to the next phase of your normal, right? You transitioned from the old normal to the new normal. And how did that go for you? And how did you start that path? So you're a new single mom, if you will. Now you're dating somebody new, somebody of the same sex, which is a whole new, I guess lifestyle change at the time, even though that was something that's your primary, desire. But it's a change in lifestyle. It's a pretty big change.
Right.
Just in general, from just one life to another. So tell me about that.
So my biggest concern was am I going to be able to be the head of the household? I now have 2 children and I have to support us. I had started working in the medical industry because the mortgage industry was still not doing well. And I was just like, okay, I chose this. I have to make this shit work. It was hard at first, even though I was dating someone and I was, happy because I had somebody that I cared for. But at the same time, my household was completely different. Like, she didn't come into my household and meet my kids right away. I needed to maneuver this whole head of household thing, figure that shit out.
That's not easy to do.
No, it's
especially from, like, I was always the head of household prior to that. Meaning, like, I always worked and I always made more than my ex-husband. So in that sense, I meant head of household. But,
right.
But, so many people I've spoken to, including Esmeralda, my friend who was on the first episode, she was a stay-at-home mom too. And there's so many moms out there that, that's one of the biggest reasons they choose not to end the relationship. And sometimes in a really bad situation that they should leave. Because it's just like, how do I do this by myself? Can I do it financially, physically, mentally, spiritually? Like Dulce in the last episode, she was like, Jeanette, I don't know how you did it. I couldn't have done it. That's why I didn't. So many people don't because of that fear, because it is legitimately very logistically challenging to do it alone.
Yeah. And for me, that's the thing that I would always think about, because I was always used to working. I mean, I started working when I was 14, so, and then decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And then I'm like, shit, I did it at the most terrible time for my industry. And then I couldn't get a job. And then that was one of the reasons that he was like, I can't leave. So I started like, okay, let's find another industry to make this work, because I need to be happy, because I felt so empty and just so like my life was so dark. And, family members after I did the transition right away were like close friends and family that were like, your light's back, like you're shining, like your light's back. And that was dim for so long. And I mean, I felt it right away, even though it was really scary. And I was always like in that fear, like, am I going to be able to handle this? And I would always tell myself, like my self-talk, like, you have to handle this. You fucking chose this. Like, you have to, you have to do this. So that's what I did. I was like, I'm going to make this work. And soon after, I was able to get back into the mortgage industry and just, create this household for myself. And then later introduce my partner to my children. But I remember many nights thinking, shit, what did I just choose? Like, I might be happy here. I have a girlfriend, but you have to take care of these kids and this household and the routine. And that's when one day it clicked, like, I'm going to create this life that I always wanted, that I didn't have with their father, which was like, I was always been like, I love the outdoors, and I always dreamed of taking vacations and showing my kids like art and just having this bright life. So it was a challenging time for me, but it was also exciting because now it was on me, and it was not coming home to somebody who I had to walk on eggshells with, or consider their feelings or their attitude or anything like that. Now it was my household, and I was going to create this life for my children that they were going to see love, and it wasn't going to be easy, of course, which it wasn't, but I was creating my reality now, and I didn't have to, really, I mean, I still, cause we co-parented, like he never, it's not like he disappeared from our lives. That was another thing. Now it's, how do you co-parent with someone who hates you?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cause that was that stage.
Yeah.
He hated me. So he didn't want to really co-parent. It was just, I'm picking them up.
Let's make it all difficult.
Right. So maneuvering that along with having a household, having routines, but taking the kids to
Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. And just taking them on weekend getaways, taking them to the beach, like amusement parks, like just things that we didn't really do.
Yeah.
So now I was showing them life in a different way. I was seeing life in color. I remember telling my partner at that time, I'm like, I see life in color now. Wow. Because my life was so dark.
Yeah, I relate. I do. I remember, like, towards the very end before I left, it was really dark for us too. Obviously, there was a big dark cloud of addiction in the house that I was at. So I remember having a vivid fantasy of me and my kids being in some sort of like bedroom or apartment or something with like a fireplace all sitting around, cozy with socks on and a blanket over us and movie on the TV, you know, like having that desire, that dream of just like that happy place, you know? And yeah, it's funny because when I moved out, although it was a hard time to think back to that time because it was so hard for the kids to not be around their dad. But it was still, for me, it was like fantasy came true. I had a little fireplace and, you know, it's weird how warm and freeing that feeling felt at the beginning.
Yeah. And for me it was crazy because thinking that I always wanted that white picket fence and that family that I was being so loyal to and you know was trying so hard to make it work, and then but feeling so dark and empty, and then the reality or that I was able to create, like to watch it like unfold in front of me, and like it was just, you know, it was an amazing time for me to see that what I was creating with my kids, because you know most people when the family separates, it's very, you know, it's very dark and I'm difficult. And difficult, but not to say that it wasn't, but for me to see myself emerge again from the darkness, to see myself shine again, that was what I needed to kind of trickle down to my kids.
To be a present good mom,
right?
To the kids. I just think that it's always difficult for the kids, and we know that, and that's why we don't do it.
That's why we don't do
either
it.
Ever, or for the longest time we try to drag it out. But then we get to that point and we're like, wait a minute, I can't even function as a mother right now, and I still have to be mother. So I have to give this up in order to raise these children, and I'm gonna have to suffer the consequences and try to do my best to raise them in through the pain of it, because I need to be a present mother.
Right, because it got to the point where, like I said, it took a while, years for him to leave. So I, at that point, was reading books about divorce and how to talk to your kids about divorce. And my therapist was helping me. I wanted as much information and how to make it the most easy process to separate. And I remember when we had the because like you said, I wasn't present. I was just things at home were so tense that it was ugly. Right. So I wasn't being that mother that I always wanted to be, because it was
that they needed
because we were just at each other's throat and just not very, it was ugly. So I'm like, I tried to not do this because I wanted the family, but it's just so toxic, and my kids deserve the mother that I want to be. When we sat my 6-year-old down and said, okay, mommy and daddy are gonna, because of that book that I read, how to, talk to kids about divorce. And it was the time to have the talk with our 6-year-old. And, you're thinking you're going to have this conversation with a 6-year-old and they're not going to get it, but we sat down and we let him know, like, mommy and daddy, really, really love you, and this is where we're at. We're going to get a divorce, and we're going to get separated, and you're going to have 2 houses, and it has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong, and our 6-year-old looked at both of us, and he said, okay, I just want everybody to be happy. Aww. And we look at each other, and we're like, bawling, because we're like, our 6-year-old didn't say no, like he like got it. He wanted to be happy too. And so we were like, okay, that kind of was like, okay, we're doing the right thing, like this is what our family needs. And in the long run, it did make us both better parents, because we both, in a sense, weren't in that toxic tense household anymore. And
it's been cool to see you guys work together, just from the recent years that I've known you. I know it's been some years now since you guys separated, but it's been cool to see, you know, the co-parenting, just harmony with that, you know, and that's been a good example.